はいはいはい。さあ、シチューができたよ。食べよう。
Rumbling, rumbling. Motherfuckers really started rumbling before going to therapy.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Nerd Soup. I am Beau Oliver, joined here today with Aaron, the Nerd Soup Monkey, and we are back to review Attack on Titan Season 4, Part 3, Part 1 of Part 3. I think that's technically correct. I may be wrong, but it's truly maddening. It's impossible to keep up with at this point. It's one of those things where I'm upset with it. Like, oh, why can't it just all release at once? And then I watch it, and I'm like, this is so cool.
No, I was
with all my buddies.
I was ready to come in here and just be grumpy about everything. But then I watched the episode, I'm like, this is still
fine,
fucking good, man.
I think you made the point that if they're going to take this time and we're going to get this quality of animation, it's worth it. Because it does feel like a movie.
Before we get into it, I think, obviously, I think it does hurt its momentum. That was a problem I had going into it, where it came out and I really wasn't, excited for it because it's just been so long and so spaced out. But once I started watching it, I'm like, it's like I know, how good it is, but I'm just, they reminded me real quick.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to wait and you're going to like it.
I totally forgot.
Now we're going to make you wait again, and you're going to love it.
Yeah, exactly. Because especially the way this ends, we're finally getting to the big action moments. Some of the best panels, I think, from those last few chapters are going to be saved for Season 4, Part 3, Part 2. But it just got me so hype. I wanted it to keep going, and that's when I paused and looked at the runtime, and I was like, fuck, we've only got 7-8 minutes left. But that was so cool. And the animation, the quality has been just unbelievable. I mean, obviously, when you're adapting a manga, not everything is going to be exact when it comes to the art style, but I think a lot of the iconic imagery, especially the apocalyptic imagery, was brought to life in such a visceral and terrifying way. And we just talked about it with The Last of Us, humanity's obsession with apocalypse. Well, this is what happens when those prophecies come true. And we see it in so many shows. We need to save the world. The world's gonna end. And the heroes pull through. But no, the hero became the villain, and he's destroying the world. You think to yourself, how could anybody live with this? And that's really what the episode is about. How the fuck do these characters live with this shit?
Yeah, and obviously the way you consume this story, it's very different from manga to the anime. You know, for me, I struggle with my imagination sometimes. So a lot of these action sequences, I kind of just buzz by. I don't really allow myself to really experience it with my own imagination through the panels. So seeing it all play out with somebody who has a better imagination than I do, animate these sequences, it's even though I knew what was going to happen, it just gives it a new life.
Right, because when you're animating it, you're taking some of these epic snapshots, where it's a snapshot of a moment, and you have to get to that moment.
Right.
So you have to imagine what were the movements, fight choreography like until we got that one perfect shot, because that's really what manga amounts to. You have all these incredible panels, but you don't fully realize it because you're reading the story, and that happens to me too with manga. So it's just fun to see it where it's actually moving, and I don't have to do the heavy lifting that I don't already do.
Well, especially the Hanji. I mean, that's the cleanest sequence I've seen from a character. Obviously, Levi has had many a moments, but especially for that character in that moment, with all the anticipation coming and her doing her job, fulfilling her role, and just to have it look that clean was, that's why you wait, I guess, the year.
Right. And that was a moment I was thinking back that nothing made me cry in this episode, even with Hanji's sacrifice, because it was so epic. It was quite literally going out in a blaze of glory. So it was more so just a celebration of her character, because she has been the heart of the show. She's the one character that always looks for the humanity in other people, and even the Titans. And through Hanji, we learn that lesson of compassion and how valuable that can be. When we're introduced to the Titans and the creatures of mass destruction, and they're horrifying to look at, but Hanji saw that humanity in them before the secret was even out. So as I mentioned, it's just the value in being able to have empathy and compassion for your enemies, where in this case they're victims too. They're probably the worst victims of anybody in the show, people who have been transformed into these monsters. And even, thinking back to when Eren first got his Titan powers, everything was so depressing. Even everybody in the military was such a dick. They were so mean to Eren and Mikasa and Armin. And then Hanji comes in and she becomes their best friend because she's so curious about Erin's Titan power. So thinking about her in that respect, that she is very much the heart of the show and the heart of the group, made me tear up thinking about it. No, and especially what Levi leaves her with, give it your heart.
And everything leading up to that moment basically just reinforced who she was as a character and what she meant to the show and to the rest of the characters. You get like a little bit of everything of what made this character so special and why she commanded the respect of the people around her. She, had that moment with Peak about wanting to ride the car Titan, having that moment with Levi, making Armin the commander, and then going out in that blaze of glory. It really was just like the perfect little end for her.
Yeah, dude, it was. And especially some of the lines when she talks about feeling so giddy about wanting to go out in a cool way.
Like, usually it isn't cool to point out that you're going out in a cool way, but she made it, like, super cool.
I'm giddy with excitement. And even when she sees the Colossal Titans, it's Hanji till the very end. She can't help but be amazed by the Titans, especially these Colossal boys, because they're big-time steppers. And just the race against the clock with the rumbling, the ticking time bomb of knowing that eventually it's going to get there. It's like the sensation of being chased up the stairs, where you just know it's never going to stop. You have to keep moving. Even the characters on the train, that's terrifying, where they see the airships and they're like, damn, that was our one escape. To just see it come to life, as I've mentioned, it's something that we've wanted to see. And even when Yelena's talking to Eren, we'll do a little rumbling. We'll attack the key ports so that the island will be safe for the next 5 decades. But it's something where it seems almost naive to say, yeah, we'll just use a little nuclear weapon, a weapon of mass destruction. Oh, we'll give them a sample. We'll give them a taste of it. It's all or nothing. And that's what this episode is proving, that there is no going back. And then it speaks to Eren's whole plight as a character, that he's become the villain of his own story because he can't stop himself. He knows what he is going to become, and we're seeing the execution of it.
No, yeah, it's terrifying. And there were a couple moments that I really, really enjoyed. One being the moment Eren shares with the child, where he knows what he has to do and he knows it's wrong. But like you said, he just can't help himself. He's in too deep. And just that moment of seeing him being jumped by those men and him being like, well, why am I going to pretend to be a righteous person when I know what I have to do?
Yeah, and there was a lot of that in this episode, even when Annie calls Armin a good person, and Armin says, I've never liked that term because I've done horrible things as well. I mean, it's stating the obvious that the show is very complicated, and I think that's why it's one of the smartest explorations of war, because there's no easy choices, and humanity always finds an excuse to exterminate or to go to war with each other or to find reasons to hate. So that's why it's so hard to see it in black and white terms, good or bad,
well, I think
villains and heroes.
When Connie's having that moment of reflection in the airship, or planes as we call them,
the flying boats,
and how that reflects what Reiner had to do. They kind of realize, we've done the same, we're in the same boat, we did the same thing.
No, they are in the same boat, the same flying boat.
Literally in the same boat.
That was actually the moment that hit me the hardest.
No, that was my favorite moment of the episode.
Well, that's, there's some great action moments in this episode, but it really was the character stuff that was so good. And it was because it was a look at the past of all of them trying to grapple with the decisions they've made and come to the conclusion of whether or not they're going to move forward. Somebody like Annie had enough and she wants to stay back, and the characters understand that because of what she's been through, and as we said, they can relate to it. But Reiner, when Connie says that we're pretty much the same, that reaction broke my heart because he's almost startled by it. It's what he's got a long way until he can find himself in a peaceful place. But at the very, very least, in this moment, he's not alone. There's somebody who knows how he feels and in some respects forgives him for what he's done. That's why I found that startled reaction to be so heartbreaking, because it's probably something he never expected to hear from his former comrades.
But that's the conclusion he comes to. And I think Reiner is the most underrated character in the entire show. The conclusion he comes to is nothing I can do will ever negate what I've done in the past. And I think it was Gene who comes out and says, I think he comes to the realization based on their actions and what they had to do in the last part, that
yeah, right.
It was
when he betrays Flock.
Yeah. It was hard that must have been how you felt in those initial moments. So speaking of Flock, how?
I truly don't know. I don't remember. I don't know how alive? I have no idea.
Didn't he get I don't know. Well, resilient guy. I feel bad for Flock because he's the one who buys in too hard. I think he's bought in even more than Eren is, which is it's embarrassing for him.
Yeah, but that's why the show is so complicated.
It's crazy.
Because a lot of people on the internet are joking, saying, oh, Aaron's doing nothing wrong. You know, if you were in that position, he's trying to save his people. He's trying to save his island. And as the point that Zeke made, if we just ended it here with our generation, there would be no more problems. But maybe that's a little short-sighted because, as I said, humanity always finds an excuse to go to war, to persecute, to oppress.
Or even when Annie said that, like, Zeke's basically like, euthanasia plan. Not so bad now, huh?
Right. Yelena's like, just tell me one thing. Zeke was right.
Yeah.
That's something that Aaron, because Aaron is so committed to his idea of what freedom is, but it's something he's never going to achieve because the world it's never going to be enough for him. So when he's talking to the young kid Ramsey, and he tells him, when I found out that there were people living outside of the walls, I was disappointed. Because the difference between Aaron and somebody like Armin was curious about the world. What did the oceans look like? What did the deserts look like? And the sands and all of these different things. For Aaron, he expected it to be over. He wanted it to be that black and white. I'll eradicate all the Titans and we'll be free. But it was never going to be that simple. And then going back to Armin, when he says, I want to believe that there is something out there that we've yet to experience or that we've yet to find. And I think that could be defined as hope. With Aaron, say what you want about him, it feels like hopelessness. This is the only direction I can keep moving in because this is what I am. This is what I need to do. Whereas Armin, he can't quite define it, but he wants to believe that there's something more out there.
I mean, you can argue, like, Aaron has, leading up to this point, like, there's definitely, obviously, we've seen reason for this rage, but I think even when you look at the Jaegerists, and you would consider them, like, extremists who follow Aaron, but I think the most telling point about what Aaron is doing is wrong is, like you said, the way Armin perceives the situation and the people who are closest to him. You know, when they start being like, hey, bud, maybe calm down a little here. At this point, yeah, he's way too deep into it. Whether he believes this is the right thing to do, or is it's just too late at this point, or I guess that's what everyone else is trying to decide. They're still trying, after all this, seeing the destruction Aaron's already caused, they're still trying to appeal to the kid that they once knew.
Right, yeah, and they mentioned that we can understand why you got to that point. And they even put some of the blame on themselves, that we pushed you, Paradise Island pushed you, the world pushed you to this point. And even some of the citizens of Marley say, we were the ones who manifested this hate, and now this hate is coming back at us times a million. So it is literally judgment day for these people. But for Aaron, you know, he is a very complicated character. Obviously, that's putting it lightly. And I think he is confused about the definitions of freedom and free will. You know, he's not going to take away their Titan powers because he very much believes in everybody's right to free will.
Well, I love that line Armin dropped them at the end.
Perfect, right? It sums up the episode, I think, brilliantly. The themes and just where the story is heading. That's what it comes down to. Because you can argue that you can have free will without freedom, but you can't have freedom without free will. And at this point, is Aaron even the one making his own decisions? It's fatalistic. He can't stop himself. So there is no free will. And that's why Armin asks him in the end, in what ways are you free at this very moment? You don't look very free, bro. You look scary.
Yeah, he's massive, dude.
Well, that's the other thing, man. I mean, it's so absurd. This, not only the size of the colossal titans, but then him as the founding titan. It is so horrifying, but he is just a massive creature. Just crawling across the world, man.
You know, I've never been the biggest Eren fan. It's funny because I do like evil Eren better than annoying Eren, like from the earlier seasons. And that's kind of why I didn't like Gabby in the beginning, because she reflected that over-the-top enthusiasm, like just, but to the point where it gets annoying, where they're so bought in. And I feel like that was a great, now I appreciate it because that's a great reflection of these two characters from different ends of the world. The way we've seen Gabby develop into somebody who does find the humanity in the people she was brought up to hate, and kind of shows like maybe this is the path that Eren should have taken, or this is the path that someone like that could have taken, and chose to go a way of reason rather than destruction. And even though Gabby didn't have that much to do in this episode, I kind of just got a reminder of that when I saw her, and then the way they were talking about Eren and kind of how he's fully on board, he's fully committed to his ways.
Right, yeah, and one of the major differences is Eren's got the Titan power, right? Game of Thrones Season 8, for all of its flaws, one line that always stuck with me is when Tyrion asked Jon, You've been up there. What would you have done? You just don't know until you're sitting up there and you're looking down at the world and you've got these powers or these abilities, whatever it is, when you can fully make your dreams, whatever that is, come true. And in this case, it's eradicating the world because he knows that Paradise Island is always going to be under threat. And then we could talk for hours about the morality and the philosophy concerning that, but we can fully understand it because we've been with Eren the entire time. And that's why it's so heartbreaking to see him shift between different times because, you know, for him, time has become a full circle. But the way they've employed the use of this type of time travel where the villain is able to step out of the story and almost take a third-person look at his own life and what he is going to do, to examine and to walk through the cities of the people that he is going to destroy utterly, entirely, and knowing that he can't stop it, it adds a new element of heartbreak and sympathy to this villain's story. And it's heartbreaking for us because we've spent so much time with him, but to see him break down in front of the young kid and apologizing for things that he is going to do and is unable to stop, it is devastating all around for Eren, for the little kid, and for the citizens of Marley.
Well, I've wanted Eren to die since episode 1, so...
Okay, so yeah, for you.
Welcome to the club, everybody. When I thought he got eaten by that Titan, it was like, the show rocks.
A lot of people thought he was dead.
Oh, I texted him, like, did they really just kill the main character?
Yeah, so characters like Ramsey and his little buddy, they're doing the same thing that Armin and Eren were trying to do. They're trying to protect the people that they know. They're trying to protect their world. And then they get fucking squished.
That was a brutal squishing.
Yeah, it was. So disturbing to see Ymir. It's like, what the fuck was that in your final moments? They were necessary sacrifices to develop the main theme, which has become, what would you do for your freedom? And we can dissect that as to what does freedom actually mean. And I think Eren's definition has become so misguided. But what would you do if you were in that situation? If somebody gives you that opportunity, you might take it. We just don't know. In this case, Eren has fully become that extremist character.
Yeah, it's something that, like I said before, you can, on the outside looking in, watching the show play out, I think most people tend to now gravitate towards, you know, Armin in terms of what he's trying to do and what he's trying to accomplish. Obviously, that whole crew, but you can see why someone can get pushed to those extremes.
Yeah, and I think it's more so just in Armin's nature, and we can debate nature and nurture, but when Hanji names him the next commander, she says commander should have an unending, I'm paraphrasing here, butchering the line, an unending curiosity about understanding things. Mm-hmm. That's the main difference, and it goes back to why they wanted to see the ocean. Armin wanted to see it because he was curious. Eren thought that it would set him free. So then you also have that sequence when he's up in the clouds and he says, this is freedom, and then you can fast forward to that final line, in what ways are you free? So it's really become a battle of wills between Eren and Armin, and that's fascinating to me because they love each other as comrades, as friends, as brothers. Really, they just happen to find themselves on the opposite ends of this war now. So maybe that's what they were meant to do. That's why they came together in the first place, to settle this once and for all in a really cool and dramatic way. And that was also another fascinating idea that maybe subconsciously Eren wanted to be stopped.
Right.
And I think there is some truth to that because of what he believes in. He does believe in absolute free will for everybody, so he's not going to take away their powers. He's not going to stack the deck. He's going to give them this opportunity to stop them. He sees it, as he says, as inevitable, that they will fight. It was always going to come down to this. In season 1, Erwin asks Eren, who's your true enemy? And it leaves Eren stumped. Erwin had that motherfucker pegged from the beginning. You are your own worst enemy. And we're seeing it come into fruition in the most horrifying of ways. But it was so triumphant. That's what's so genius about the show, is that it's super complex, but they give you those hero moments.
Right.
So when they all fly off the plane and Levi's leading the charge and Reiner's pushing, for extra propulsion.
He has the best Titan transformation.
Yeah, dude. And he fucking goes straight for Zeke throwing lightning balls.
Well, yeah, I mean, he said who's Eren's worst enemy? Well, who's Levi's worst enemy? The Beast Titan. No matter what's going on, no matter what time of year, bigger fish to fry, Eren? No. I want the fucking Beast.
I love how it was mad dramatic of him saying,
sight.
I'll kill him. Like, yeah, Levi, we know that. But then he says, with your help.
One eye, two fingers. banged up.
Oh, he doesn't give a fuck, dude. Shoot him up with some penicillin. Whatever they gave Pat Mahomes for his ankle. Motherfucker was out there leading the charge. But it's just so cinematic. And that's where you get, the extra time that they spent animating it. It feels like you're watching one of these high-end productions that you see in the theaters when Demon Slayer drops a movie or one of these other shows and they get that extra $15 to $20 million. But time makes a difference, man.
5 fingers, 2 fingers, chicken fingers. Doesn't matter. Levi 6.
Hell yeah, bro. Yeah, so that was so cool to see, man, and that's why I'm so excited for the rest of it. And, from the perspective of the Marlians, they are heroes in this moment. They're here to save the world, and that's why I made the point that it's amazing that a show so depressing, and more specifically an episode so depressing, full of so much despair and regret and hopelessness, can end on such a triumphant moment where these characters do have the opportunities to become heroes to these citizens. There's still that hope that they're hanging on to, that they're willing to fight for. And to me, it's just awesome.
Peak's always been my hero, though.
Oh, Peak's great, yeah. Peak is Peak.
Good to have her back on my screen. But yeah, I mean, coming together, obviously two opposite sides, the Eldians from Morley, Eldians from Paradise, and even... I liked how the people who were in that little fortress were a little shook up, oh, those are the Eldians. They're together. Okay.
Yeah, what the hell is going on here?
Super team.
And, Reiner's mother was there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of guilt there for what they forced their children to do. So a lot of the episode was them reflecting on their past and their past decisions and how things could have went differently. But the matriarch of the Azuma Bedo clan,
mm-hmm.
I think her lines there were very profound when she talks about, I can't change what I did, but I'll always live with this regret. So it speaks to Erin's idea of moving forward. But there is an opportunity to not necessarily rectify it, but as Armin says, you have to believe that there is something more.
Well, there's no one left here that is without regret, which is so great. They all can look back and be like, yeah, we've made mistakes or we've done things that are unforgivable. And maybe saving humanity isn't going to make up for it, but it's a start.
Right, yeah, that's why I kept thinking, how do you even deal with the reality? How do you process the reality of what's happening? The world is being exterminated. It's so easy to give up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't. And it is very, when Azuma Bedo says, why must we experience loss before we can realize how to respect and value others without putting ourselves first? It's amazing the shit that you have to go through in order to get to that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where all of these characters, as you said, they're all living with the regret. They're all broken in certain ways. And now they understand that point. Is it too late? I guess we'll see in Season 4, Part 3, Part 2. But... at the very least, it looked epic.
Well, I think it speaks to Armin too, his character and like you said, his tendency to use reason or try to still understand every situation as best as possible, and him reluctant to go to the plan where, I guess it's plan B at this point, kill Eren. And, Mikasa still has those reservations as well where she won't kill Eren. And when we think about it, those are the two characters that know him best. And to see they still have that little bit inside them that are we're going to exhaust every option we have to try to reason with him.
Right, yeah, and it does speak to the belief that they both have with Armin. As I mentioned, it's about finding that hope or still holding out for something more. And for Mikasa, it's this belief that Eren doesn't have to keep moving forward, that we can bring him back. Not literally, but emotionally and spiritually, whatever it is, get him back to the place of being that kid, of being the person that she fell in love with, the person that was always there for her, and then vice versa. So for her character, I have been a little frustrated with the overall arc of the character because she felt so cool in the first couple of seasons. Yeah. And then she sort of has been relegated to, it's similar with Jon and Daenerys, where it's a lot of Eren, that's really a lot of her character.
I mean, the whole thing, she has to protect Eren and everything. It was kind of pretty almost meta to what
the whole Ackerman curse.
Yeah. So what we've always, people have made fun of, well, not made fun of, but always pointed out with Mikasa, her whole character turned into basically where's Eren,
Yeah, right.
No scarf in her Taylor Swift era.
No scarf, yeah, and the scarf does symbolize that innocence, the childhood that they both shared, and that I think she would be willing if she had to, or she had the opportunity, and they've exhausted all of the resources, to kill him, which, once again, would be super heartbreaking. And speaking of death, I love the way that Hanji had the moment with Erwin there at the end.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to say I don't believe in the afterlife myself, but I do like when shows try and give us the metaphorical afterlife that it more so for me symbolizes she's at peace. She did her job. She was able to help them get away. So they're able to continue that fight. And as Levi says, watch over us. So did it happen? Did it not? I like the sentiment of it.
Yeah. I just picture them just watching like it's a Super Bowl. Like just looking down.
Oh, that's a good move.
Oh, we got Reiner? It's a big pickup.
And, probably the last time we'll see Erwin or hear Erwin speak.
Yeah. It's so great how his presence just still looms over these characters.
God, Levi's so in love with that guy. He's like, don't you start sounding like him.
So he's going to make me cry because I miss him.
Give up on your dreams and die. Still the funniest fucking line ever spoken in a television show. I also got a kick out of, they're all making their pleas for Eren. They're being really nice. And Levi's like, come out of here and I won't kick your ass. Or I'll make it quick. And that's the last person who speaks before Eren answers. I like to think that Levi's the one who got under his skin. Like, fuck that little motherfucker. Always kicking the shit out of me. On Jan Capone whipping that plane.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't have a Titan power, but that was cool.
Everyone's chipping in here.
Everybody is chipping in, man. Even the guys, even the welders, And we keep touching on it, how depressing this episode was, but there are those moments of levity and even romance. It did surprise me with Armin. I don't know. Armin just seems like it's like Sherlock. I don't see him as the romantic type, but that was a sweet moment that he shared with Armin and that he shared with Annie.
No, Armin's got game, man.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, show your proof.
I don't know. I think sitting next to a crystallized human being for all that time and talking, playing the long game. She woke up, first thing she thinks about, Armin. He was there for me the whole time.
Yeah, I don't think it's problematic, but I imagine some people might. A little strange. That was a sweet moment when he does grab her hand, and it's just, he tells her, I wanted to talk to you. That's why I did it.
Yeah, I think obviously the dynamic between these two groups and these two characters are definitely a bit muddled, but we see with everything going on at this time, it's like there's no time to even like reflect on the past or who betrayed who, like, because there's so much bigger fish to fry at this point. But yeah, I think especially coming from Annie, we talked about Reiner and we talk about the way Connie and all these other characters are dealing with everything. It's not that she's running, I feel like, but it's just enough. To her, everything has just been too much for her. You see that when she decides to not go with the rest of the group and go with Gabby and Falco on the boat.
Yeah, and we mentioned that we saw Reiner's mom, and you also see Annie's father. And getting that backstory is super eye-opening, where we understand why Annie always had that really somber demeanor. When you're first introduced to Annie, I never liked her because of that, because she was just so emotionless. But to see her open up now, and as you mentioned, it's not running, it's taken such a toll on her that you could argue she deserves this break.
Right.
She even has that moment with Reiner where she's able to forgive him. So there was a lot of opening up between these characters. But as you mentioned, the fact that they come, Annie from Marley, Armin from Paradise Island, that they managed to fall in love. We all know that they're good people on both sides. But it's heartwarming for them to come to that conclusion as well. And then it becomes very personal between two characters that I think most fans really do love and respect.
And that's what makes Armin such a good option to be a leader, because of his ability to understand people and see where they're coming from, know what went into the decisions they make, and not judge them or kind of view them differently because of those decisions.
Yeah, and it was also sad when Annie realizes Armin is going to continue fighting with the group. Even though they both confess to their love in so many ways, they can't be together. So, romance and then a little heartbreak. That's Attack on Titan for you. Yeah, just circling back to the way that the execution of the time travel is so striking. Because when Eren, one moment that's really stuck with me is when Eren's in the clouds and he says, we're finally at this view. And then it cuts to all the dead bodies. That is horrifying. And it's just the way, a lot of times these retrospective episodes, they could come off as a bit cheesy. But with this, it just adds so much to the emotional impact of the story. Because of the way that it's executed. Just the pure filmmaking on display was so impressive. As I mentioned, the editing, cutting back, even with Ramsey, right? Where Eren's telling him about what's going to happen. And then when it's happening, Ramsey's like, oh my God, remember that crazy motherfucker who told me this was going to happen? What the fuck?
Is this that?
This is that.
This is what he was talking about? Damn.
So it's scary. And even for Eren's character, when he's walking around the city and he says, I imagine I have to do this because we didn't find a way for Paradise to survive.
Right.
where he's putting the blame on everybody else. And even Hanji says, I wasn't able to show Eren a better future. He knows what's going to happen. And the blame that he does put on himself is, man, it sucks that nobody else was able to show me a better way and I had no choice but to destroy everything. Don't you feel bad for me? So I found that to be pretty funny. I just thought the different looks at the different times and the way it was executed was all just super effective.
Yeah, it flowed really nicely. It wasn't like jarring or confusing at any time, but it all made sense within the context of where they were going with this episode. So
yeah, that's a good point. It could have been messy, and it wasn't. And there was even that moment at the end, we talked about Annie no longer wanting to fight, but Falco and Gabby are starting to put the pieces together that there might be something more to Falco's abilities because of him ingesting the spinal fluid of Zeke. So he's getting some of those powers as well, and we see that he's got a vision of him up on the clouds. So, Han Solo, yippee type moment. Probably not yippieing, but we'll see. You know what stuck with me too, man? Falco's that's the reaction that I would have, right? You wake up, it's like, oh, hey, 80% of the world's been annihilated.
yeah.
What? What do we do? Peek's like, I don't know.
Yeah, seeing them just roll up like that. You don't realize how big Eren is, because like
those colossal titans are all bigger than Armin.
And then when you see them on his back, and like the beast is just like a little, I don't know, like a little puppet on his like spinal strings.
Right, yeah. No, the scale of it's hard to process the scale of it all. And as I mentioned, the apocalyptic imagery just sets the screen on fire, quite literally. When you're seeing those burning bodies and the one guy who decides to pull the trigger, it's hard to put into words how mortifying it truly is. And I think it's one of those things that, of course, we haven't experienced the end of the world, but certain people have with their own little worlds. So I think it does relate to, some of the experiences that people have had in the real world, that this is something that does happen sometimes, and we don't like to think about it, or it's impossible for us to even put ourselves in those shoes. So sometimes storytelling is the best way to do that. So even though it is, these giant titans that are totally illogical, destruction on this scale is not illogical. That's actually very possible. So that's what makes it so frightening for me. And as I mentioned, mortifying, and it's so hard to process. But Hanji was giving them that work, though.
Yeah, she took out like decent amount.
Yeah, like 20.
That's also one of like the coolest shots I ever heard. Just the fireball.
Yeah,
just
dude,
slicing through.
Well, when her cape fell off, I was like, "Oh, damn, she's ashes. She doesn't exist anymore."
No, yeah, she was on fire.
Yeah, but then you see her charred body.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe she just like got turned to ashes, like she's like reduced to atoms type of thing. I was happy that at least she was a charred body. Because I don't know, imagine just being popped out of existence. That feels worse to me. Like, in Ant-Man when the guy was made into a little squishy thing?
Yeah.
And he just wipes him up? Like, your existence doesn't exist anymore. You can't donate organs.
So you don't want to get cremated?
I don't. No, I don't think I do. Yeah.
Me neither, but more so just in case, like, zombies ever happen. I feel like if I'm already dead, why not be a zombie, Maybe like a pet cemetery situation? I don't know. I'm not ruling it out.
Did anybody else die in this episode? Besides the poor kids?
Flock?
Flock? Yeah, fuck Flock, man. He really is the most annoying character ever. As you said, he just takes it way too far.
I'm convinced Eren does not like him at all.
That would be funny if there was a throwaway line like, "We killed Flock." And Eren's like, "Who?" Oh, I thought you sent him. I don't know. Isn't he your boy? And I've never met a Flock in my life, guys. I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. But this is it, man. And, as frustrating as the release schedule has been, I can't tell you how much I love how that this felt like a movie, because that's the experience that I got out of it. You get so lost in this world, and it goes so fast because it's so good. By the end of it, it's...
Well, it's on Letterboxd,
depressing.
So it's basically a movie.
Right, yeah, it is on Letterboxd, so nice 60-minute runtime. I'm just going to keep rewatching it until the next one comes out. I can't say enough good things about it, man. I thought it was one of the... If you want to consider it just to be one episode, it's some of the best television that we've gotten from this show.
100%, I agree.
All right, that does it for our review of Attack on Titan Season 4, Part 3, Part 1. We will be back in the fall. I think that's when it's coming back, right?
Of 2023?
Of 2023,
okay.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. It's coming back.
That's all you can hope for at this point.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be alive. You don't know. I mean, we could die.
We could get rumbled.
Oh my god. Let's get It would be funny if he had a hype man. There's somebody on the mic.
Flock.
God damn it, we killed the hype man. R.I.P.
Wow, that was probably our best review yet. Hey guys, Aaron the Nerd Soup Monkey here with a brief shameless plug before we end the video. Do you ever feel like you don't have an adequate amount of nerd soup in your life? Like you're going to bed hungry and yearning for the nonsensical yet entertaining nutrients our podcasts provide? Well, we've come up with the perfect solution. The Nerd Soup Fan Question Podcasts, exclusively available to our Patreon supporters. You can sign up now by visiting patreon.com/nerdsoup, and for the price of only $1 per month, you'll receive exclusive access to our weekly podcast where we answer your questions that don't make it to the main show. And while you're there, you can check out the other rewards we offer to our patrons, like stickers, mugs, t-shirts, behind-the-scenes footage, and appearing in the credits at the end of our videos. And that's exactly what we're gonna do right now. Roll the names of the nerds who make Nerd Soup possible. The reason why the crypto crash didn't send our lives spiraling down a black hole of no return. Alright, I'll stop talking so you can listen to this jazzy-ass music while checking if Beau spelt your name wrong in the credits.